Just how many people use the word of the gospel to scam money from other people? Reverend Clarence Smith Jr. was the perfect example of a wolf in sheep's clothing, or, in this case, a thief in priest's robes. Smith's reign of holy greed came to an end when locals began questioning his lavish lifestyle. Other than those crazy TV pastors like Joel Osteen and Kenneth Copeland, there was no reason why a North Lawndale Chicago priest would be rolling around in a $140,000 sports car. So much for humbleness, right? Specifically, Smith bought himself a $142,000 Bentley with the money he stole from the state of Illinois through a not-so-elaborate scheme involving meal plans for the poor and needy. In total, so-called Reverend Smith stole over $800,000 from the state of Illinois, money that was supposed to go to the needy. Still, through it all, Smith maintained his high ground. He told his Facebook followers to never look down on those people in need because, quote, because God never looked down on us. So, how exactly did Smith do this? Smith's scheme took advantage of state-sponsored food programs that would refund expenses paid by churches like the New Life Impact Church. The program was called the Child and Adult Care Food Program. New Life Church was recognized as a participant in the program. They would feed children and needy folks all around Chicago and then bill the state for their expenses. But he eventually withdrew the money in cash at ATMs and wrote checks for his personal expenses. While New Life Church did in fact provide some meals to needy people, Smith grossly overexaggerated the number of meals served. He would say that he served a lot more meals than he actually served, and he would simply send a giant bill to the state. The meal payments were paid to New Life Church in 2 installments in the summer of 2016. The expenses covered fake meals dating all the way back to October of 2015. According to the charges, Smith then withdrew the cash from ATMs and cut himself personal checks from the church's bank account. A week after he received more than $800,000, Smith went ahead and bought himself that shiny new Bentley. It was the car that got his congregation suspicious, along with the people that were simply living around the church. One question we have is, why are scammers this dumb? Why wouldn't he just pocket the money and not be flashy? Why are any pastors supposed to be flashy? Local resident Ravin Kosi told reporters, quote, he was coming around in Jordans and Bentleys and new cars, and I'm like, wait a minute, pastors don't do that. Yep, Ravin got it right. There was plenty of reason to suspect Smith of foul play, especially when the pastor was rolling around in a flashy new sports car while his church saw little to no improvements. While Smith was busy ripping off the state of Illinois, he was also in the middle of several lawsuits with numerous other food vendors that he owed money to. In 2015, Reinhart Foodservice won a $500,000 settlement against Smith for failing to make payments. In 2016, CNC Dairy Incorporated claimed that Smith owed them roughly $45,000 for various dairy products he had bought and never paid for. So, was he just ripping everyone around him off? Did he triple dip and sell the milk products too? 2015 wasn't the beginning of Clarence Smith's criminal career. In 2001, Smith forged documents that gave him access to the bank account of an elderly man who had passed away a few months earlier. Smith simply began cutting himself checks from the dead man's account, totaling over $100,000. He pled guilty to the scheme in 2011 and served 6 months in jail, and he was ordered to repay the full amount to the victim's family. Did he ever pay the family back? Nope. At the time of his arrest for the New Life scam, Smith still owed money to the victim's family. The only reason he was allowed to travel was because he was doing so-called church business. In 2012, Smith claimed to only have $20 cash to his name when creditors were looking for the roughly $80,000 he still owed the family. He filed for personal bankruptcy, but he was actually denied. Did this past debt drive him to do the New Life scam? Was this the so-called solution to his financial situation? Or was this just something he did because scamming is in his nature? The glaring question probably on your mind may be, how did no one notice his past? How did someone who was a supposed pastor, who's done 6 months behind bars, qualify for a state-sponsored meal program? Technically, the church was classified as a daycare. Illinois Child and Adult Care Food Program supplies meals to children and adults enrolled in daycare outside of school. And it turns out that there is no background check required when someone representing an organization applies to be part of the food care program. But they do ask the right questions, but they just don't follow up. Basically, they asked, "Hey, have you or anyone that works here committed a crime?" And Smith just wrote down basically, "Of course not. Praise Jesus." The ironic thing is that the application specially asks about fraud or anything that may show a lack of business integrity. Smith simply just wrote no on his application. However, the lack of background checks didn't stop federal agencies from questioning where the money was going. The Illinois State Board of Education, part of the Federal Department of Education, started hounding Smith for documentation proving where the money was going. They wanted proof that he served the meals he claimed he served. Between 2015 and 2016, the Board of Education tried to conduct reviews of the New Life Impact Church. However, Smith was ready with a year's worth of excuses. Here's what happened each time federal authorities tried to reach him. In August of 2015, he claimed to be out of town. In September of the same year, it was the same story, except he came up with a doctor's excuse. In November, he told authorities he was sick, something he was able to use all the way until May of 2016. May came and Smith tried to cancel again, but this time the Board of Education refused to reschedule again. They weren't playing anymore. So Smith doubled down. He claimed his church team was new and couldn't help with the review while he was, guess what, out of town again. Finally, a year later, in August of 2016, the Board of Education threw in the towel and kicked New Life Church off the program. By the end of August 2016, Smith owed the Board of Education $3.3 million. But he did eventually meet with authorities. Smith's absolute best excuse was that a flood came through and destroyed all of his important documents. He wanted to blame a giant flood for his misfortunes. Smith dug his heels firmly into the sand. He denied any involvement in his scam and continued to promote the New Life Impact Church on social media. He continued to post selfies and videos telling his followers to come to church. In the middle of his scam in 2015, Smith posted on Facebook this precious quote: "We can no longer impress the community with talk, but impact the community with our walk." Yep, all this while buying a Bentley to drive around one of the poorest neighborhoods of Chicago. Interestingly enough, on Smith's Twitter account, he posted pictures of himself throughout the years where he's shown that he had been steadily losing weight. And yes, he was still pretending to preach the gospel and doesn't mention any of his crimes. Then again, that's to be expected. Who talks about the worst of themselves on social media? Since Smith's charges in January of 2020, New Life Impact Church has been scrubbed from the internet. However, a Google search of the church does display an image of the small brick building decorated with a faded white banner. The word ministries can barely be made out. Here's what's next.